very strange to be up here and not out there, but it's kind of neat, though. I have to say that I really am honored to be able to come up and be able to speak to you all about such a hugely important topic, the topic of Catholic Charities and the work that we do. But I also have to say that I'm really honored to be able to be here and just think about the big shoes that I'm filling of Sister Anne. What a great person she was, what a lively person she was. I met a lot of people this week that have heard her speak, and what a dynamic, wonderful speaker she is, and what a great life that she left and lived. And how great, probably right now, she's probably in heaven with a big group like this, just kind of maybe making some jokes and talking about the church and all kinds of things, who knows what. But I realized that I have a big job to do in attempting to sort of hold a candle to what she would have done had she been here in person. We know that she's here in spirit. So I started thinking of, okay, what could I give that would be a really good talk? Like, I mean, I got to knock this out of the park. What could be really good that I could talk about? So I thought, well, gee, I guess maybe I could give some sort of an analysis of the economy. They'd love that. And I thought, well, maybe not. And then I started thinking, well, maybe something more interesting that everybody would understand, and how much I really do want to move to Charlotte and work for the Catholic Charities Agency here because they're so obviously on it. And I thought, well, there's been enough of that. Maybe we don't need to talk about that. Then I thought, well, maybe some extreme couponing, would that be a good topic? Or maybe I could do an analysis of 1970s television or something like that. Who wouldn't want to hear a whole analysis of the $6 Million Man or something like that? But maybe not. And then I thought, well, gee, I could spend some time, maybe honoring Father Larry some. But gee whiz, Larry, we've been honoring you, and you still have 5 more months to go. I mean, how much more honoring do we have to do? Though we do honor you very much. He said, though, before I got up here, he said he had 2 fears. One fear was that I would forget to show up, and the other fear was that I actually would show up. Thanks. So I thought, all right, well, of all those different topics that I could come up with, I found one that I think that we could all agree on. And that all of us, I think, realize that we work for a Catholic Charities Agency, which is a Catholic faith-based organization. It's a Christian, Judeo-Christian heritage. And that maybe a question that all of us have had at one point or another, no matter what religious perspective or non-religious perspective we come from, is that, what about that Trinity? What is the Trinity? And how do we really understand that? So that's what I'm going to talk about. I'm going to explain the Trinity. I just knew that I could do it. So I thought, well, if I explain the Trinity, this is really going to be a home run for me. Bishops all over are going to be knocking at my door. They're going to be like thinking, well, I want that guy. So I did a lot of studying. I did a lot of research. I looked up all my notes from the seminary, and I did a lot of talking. I read about like whatever Irenaeus said back in the 3rd century, and then there are all these words like spirations and different persons and all these different things, and lots of stuff written in the 3rd century about this. And then I thought I started putting it together. I put a great PowerPoint put together. But then when I got to it, I started working and putting it together. The PowerPoint had about 78 slides, and I still was nowhere near done. So I thought, well, maybe they won't go for that. Do you think? Maybe not. So I started thinking about the Trinity, though. And I started thinking about Catholic Charities. That's us. And thinking about what is real about our God. What's so real about our God being 3 persons in one God, as we understand it through our theological tradition. And how do we, as Catholic Charities, embody that being, that way of being? How do we, as Catholic Charities, embody a God who is 3 persons in one? We always talk about ourselves as being the hands and face of the Lord in the work that we do. So how are we in that way as a Trinity? Well, I started thinking about 3, kind of get it, 3, Trinity, there together, that 3 things, 3 concepts, 3 ways of being that the Trinity is that I think Catholic Charities exhibits. And in our work, we become divine in reflecting these 3 aspects of the Trinity. And the 3 aspects are equality, diversity, and unity. So think about how these 3 things are the Trinity, and they're reflected through their very existence, and how we reflect that in our work and our life together. Let's break it down a little bit. Let's first talk about equality. Okay, we know that the Trinity is totally equal. Father, Son, Spirit. We always look at it that way, don't we? Father, Son, Spirit. We always start off in the name of the Father, and then the Son, and the Holy Spirit. We never, it's always seemed to be a rank order or something. But we know, through our understanding, they're equal, totally equal. Equal in majesty is a phrase that we say. I bet if we started off all of our prayers in the name of the Spirit and the Father and the Son, they wouldn't be offended by that. They'd think that was fine. Whatever. We're all equal. They all share it together. They're all on the same plane. So we think about this equality, that image of equality that the Trinity is in its very existence, and think about how we live that out in our life, how we reflect that in our work. Think about how we as people recognize the equality of all humanity. All of us in our work every day. No matter if somebody has been in prison for most of their life, or somebody who was just born or not even born yet, and everybody in between. We view them all as completely equal in the goodness and the dignity and the life that they live. That equality is something that we believe and we see in every person. Think about the compassion that we as a Catholic Charities Network exhibit through the work that we do every day equally to everyone. Now think about this. I think this is maybe a good analogy to think about it. We think about a tree, a beautiful tree that might have big branches that are sticking out and providing beautiful shade and comfortable shade in the hot sun, or maybe a little bit of comfort from a breezy wind that those branches can hang over and protect people from. You know what? No matter what person comes under that tree, the shade is still provided for that person that's under the branch. That's the compassion of God's love, is that it's covering and shading whoever comes underneath it. Think about it. Even if somebody comes at that tree with a chainsaw, the shade is still provided. The same thing with God's love, and the same thing with the work that we do and the way that we approach the world as this addressing this image of equality. No matter who comes at us or how angry they may be about something, or how broken they may be, or how hurt or desolate they may be, we're that branch providing that indiscriminate compassion for every single person that approaches us in need. Think about that. And think about how we are a part of that. Our God, equal in majesty, our God showing us how to live through his very existence, and us carrying that message out through our addressing of the equality and the dignity of every single person. Where do we get this understanding? Where do we get this stuff? We can go back to the very beginning of the Bible. You from the first page of Genesis, and there's the first lines on the page there say that God came on the scene there, and what he saw was a watery chaos. It's interesting that in the image of the Bible there, God didn't create the world out of nothing in those first few lines. There was sort of a watery chaos. So it says that watery chaos in Hebrew is tohum vabahu. It's pretty cool, I know Hebrew. And so this tohum vabahu it really is the word for monster, and it's the word for water. In Hebrew, that's right there. So God comes on the scene and he sees this kind of scary, monstery looking water stuff. And what does he do? It says in the scripture that a great wind blew over the water. Well, you know what? That great wind is the same word for breath. God's breath blowing that water out of the way so that he can create a world where we can all live together. So you kind of picture that, all that kind of gross, scary water, and God blows the water away, and it's kind of staying there. It never says that God quit using his breath. God never quit blowing and keeping that water to keep us all safe, no matter who we are. That breath, that wind, that wonderful breath that's coming from God's very lungs is blowing around us and surrounding us. That's his Spirit. That's the Spirit in living and enlivening and keeping us safe from that water kind of crashing down and drowning us or messing us up or getting us all stuck in something. That's what God's loving breath is doing for us. Think about that image of God's breath from the very moment of creation. Then if you turn the page in the Bible, you'll see that God gave life to a little pile of dirt. God got down in that garden that day and formed in his hands a little figure, a figure of clay, and he breathed life into it again. It's that same breath that he used to blow that scary water away to keep us all safe, very much uniquely to that one person breathed life into that little figure, and it took on life the first person. That's what he does for every single one of us. It's not only is he breathing and looking out for all of us together as the people that he's created, but individually and uniquely, in a unique and special way, he's breathing life into every single person. Well, you think about that same breath that's breathing life into us. You think about that same breath that blows around us as a community each day. And that's what Catholic Charities breathes into people. In fact, I kind of came up with this analogy actually from talking to one of the clients at Catholic Charities in East Tennessee. She had been an abused wife. Many of our agencies across the country serve people who have been abused in difficult situations like this. She came and stayed with us at our shelter for quite a while. And after the time when she was able to get it back together and be able to go live on an apartment on her own, she had a restraining order, she had her children, everything was really in good order for her. And you know what she said to me? This agency has breathed life back into me. I love that image because every day, you all of us, and through Catholic Charities, we're doing what God has done from the beginning of time. We're carrying on his ministry by breathing life into our clients. People who were dead, they were down in the dirt, just like Adam was. And we pick them up. Our agency, our network picks people up and breathes life into them again to give them another chance. You know what? There's another sacred scripture that talks about this concept of equality. And that's when Jesus, at the Last Supper, his Last Supper with his friends, gets a cup and turns it over to his friends and says, this cup is one that we're all supposed to share. And this cup is my blood. What an amazing word to say. Now, if we went back a couple thousand years, we'd have a better understanding of exactly what Jesus meant. Blood was an image of a covenant. You know, it used to be, even before Jesus, back in Abraham's days, they would take animals and cut them in half, and their blood would be all over the ground or whatever. Well, that image of the blood on the ground that the people would say would be a way of expressing a covenant. What happened to this animal happened to me if I break my word against you. It was an image of a relationship between two parties, two entities. So Jesus saying, this is a cup of my blood that I want us all to share. It was expressing a deep and abiding relationship. We talk about real presence, and that's what that is when we celebrate Mass, is a real presence of Christ there. But think about the depth and the reality of the relationship that Jesus is extending to us. What an unbelievable, great relationship that cup brings that we all share as one. It's one cup that we all can drink from, and that's a real relationship that we share in one another and with Christ Jesus, who lives with us now. I can't help but think about this image of a cup. From one day, I was at Catholic Charities again of East Tennessee, and we were doing a little a homeless program. It was a homeless program that we had, and so there were all kinds of people there. And so a guy who had come in the night before was at breakfast. And so I just went into the cafeteria where everybody was eating, and unfortunately, as many of the clients that we serve, he was kind of struggling. He hadn't had bathed in a few days, so you could kind of tell by being around him. And then you could notice that there was like chunks of food or something in his big long beard, and it was kind of in the lips of his mustache too. And again, didn't look real clean or put together. But he was drinking a cup of coffee, and I think he was so happy to be in a safe place. So he's drinking this cup of coffee, and he's kind of walking around, and then I saw one of our staff, who I know to be slightly OCD. Maybe not diagnosable, but he was right there. And so I saw him in the cafeteria too. Well, I saw this client who had come in the night before with his cup of coffee coming toward the staff person. And I was just sort of watching. I just wonder what they'll say. Well, the homeless guy came and said to the staff person, hey, have a sip of my coffee. I could see the look on his face. You know what that guy did? He took the cup and took a sip and said, thank you so much. And I was like, whoa, I can't believe that he did that. So then later I went to the staff, to the client, to the guy that was homeless, and I said, hey man, I saw you sharing your cup of coffee around this morning. Well, what was going on? He said, the coffee was so good, I just couldn't keep it to myself. I had to share it with somebody. What a great image. So then I went to the staff person and I said, man, I saw you kind of sharing that cup there. And he's like, I know, I had to. I couldn't turn it down. The opportunity for him to give and to share something was an opportunity that I just couldn't turn down and couldn't do to him. And I thought, this guy gets it. He overcame his slight OCD-ness to be able to say, hey, look, I'm going to share this cup with somebody. You know what? Every day across our country, our network is sharing a cup with people, is building a real relationship with people. You know, we don't treat people just as numbers. We don't treat people just as a statistic. We treat them in a way that is sharing the cup with one another. That's a real relationship that we are sharing with each other. That's awesome. And that's a recognition of the real equality that we all share with one another, and that we're all on this level playing field, one of us helping the other serving the other back. You know, I do want to point out one thing that might be a little bit confusing about this whole idea of equality and how we live that out and exhibiting the presence of God in this world. And that's this concept that our church has of a preferential option for the poor. We've heard that phrase. Maybe many of us have heard that phrase and used that phrase. Special priority for the poor or something like that. But if you think about it for just a minute, people who are poor are struggling with what? What are people struggling with if they're in poverty? They're struggling because they don't have enough food or enough healthy food. They don't have a good roof over their head, so they're exposed to the elements. They don't have oftentimes enough clothes, sufficient clothing that's healthy to keep them protected from the elements. And many times don't have health care to be able to get help. So if you think about this, people who are in poverty, which is over 15% of our United States, people in poverty, if you don't eat right, what's going to happen to you? You're going to get sick. If you don't have a good roof over your head to protect yourself from the elements, you're going to get sick. If you don't have good clothing to keep yourself warm or keep yourself cool in the appropriate climates, you're going to get sick. And if you get sick and you try to go to the hospital or get care, you're not going to get it because you don't have health care. So the people that are in poverty are closer to death than the non-poor. Poverty and poverty relief is a life issue. When we talk about being a pro-life church, we talk about many aspects, and this is a significant one. We must recognize that we are a pro-life church, and therefore people who are in poverty are closer to death than those that are not poor. And how do we consistently reach out to them and serve them and respect their life and hold their life up as just as sacred as any other life? Well, it seems funny, though, to put one preference over another group. How can we put the non-poor over the poor if you just got finished saying that everybody's equal? Let me give you a little analogy maybe that'll help. One day, a couple of years ago, actually, my nieces have grown older. I have two nieces that I love more than anything. I love those two nieces so much. They're so awesome. So one was 6 and the other is 2. And so I'm in the front yard babysitting them. Some of you may be questioning the wisdom of that, but I was given that responsibility. And so I knew that I had a big thing on my plate here that I love those nieces so much. I wanted to make sure that they were both safe and both careful. And I also had a little skin in the game because I knew if there was a scratch, the hint of anything wrong with either one of them when my sister got back, that I was toast as well. So it was a big deal. So I'm watching out for both of them. And so who do you think I would watch out more for? Yeah, the 2-year-old. Because she's a little bit more vulnerable. She doesn't know the difference between the street and the driveway. She doesn't know what happens when you fall out of a tree. She doesn't know what happens when you eat grass. Like the 6-year-old has all this experience. She knows all that stuff. So now we know. I love them both equally, but one is a little bit more vulnerable, and that's who I need to keep an eye out for. And this is the message that we know to be true as Catholic Charities. Everybody's equal. We're all on the same playing field. God loves us all. But maybe sometimes we need to do a little bit more to try to give some people a little bit of a hand up. It's like that image that maybe you've seen of 3 kids looking over a fence at a baseball game. One's a little taller, one's about medium, and one's real short. And they need different boxes to stand on in order to see over the fence. There's a level of equity that we need to distribute there so that they can each have access to see the baseball game that's going on over that fence. We are the boxes, hopefully creating a level of equality for all of the clients that we serve. Well, okay, that's enough about equality, you think? Let's move on a little bit to diversity. Let's talk about the diversity of the Trinity. Now think about this. I mean, our God, one God, is 3 different persons. Think about how a father is very different from his son. And think about how a son wants to be unique and differentiated from their parents and from their father. And think about the Spirit that lives on in everyone and lives on forever, and all the things that are said about the Spirit, and all the things that are said about the Son and the Father that are so distinct and so different. They do carry different roles. What do they say? Creator, Redeemer, Sanctifier. I know they all equally share those, but there are kind of different roles that I think that we talk about from the different parts of the Trinity. So they're definitely very diverse. So I think about this image of diversity, and I can't help but look around this room today and see all the diversity that's here. We see people that serve in soup kitchens. We see people that serve in administration. We see people that serve in raising funds so that we can do the work better. We see case managers that are serving veterans. We see people that are providing mental health counseling to those that need it the most. We provide everything and all of the things that are in between and around all that. What diversity of service it is that Catholic Charities makes up. That's so awesome that we celebrate that. You know what? I think we got to grab onto that and keep pushing it forward for this diversity thing. Let me tell you, not everybody gets this. Just 2 weeks ago, I did the Myers-Briggs? I did a Myers-Briggs workshop with a for-profit company that a friend of mine works for. He said, hey, would you come and do this Myers-Briggs workshop for? Well, he's a new guy. He's only been there for less than a year as the CEO of this for-profit company. Well, he invited me to come in, and I come in, today's topic is the Myers-Briggs Type Indicator, which is, a personality inventory. And so you could see the room just like hush or get quiet or whatever. And I thought, dang, they don't want to hear about this? Doesn't everybody love this thing? I thought everybody fired up about it. Well, you know what happened? That the previous person who had been the CEO of the organization previously had given the Myers-Briggs to people and fired people that were not like him. They used excuses. I know, seriously, it's ridiculous. So this was a story. No wonder they were all ready to run me out of there. Oh no, it's the Myers-Briggs. We're all going to get canned, That's what they were afraid of. That was a horrible mistake. You think about the Myers-Briggs as a way of acknowledging the differences of everybody. Just think about it. If we were all a bunch of introverted people, we'd all be maybe doing our own thing by ourselves. Or if we were all extroverts, we'd all be talking and not doing any listening. So we need the diversity of people. We need the different community coming together to look at that diversity and people working together, seeing different angles on faith, seeing different angles on solutions to poverty, seeing different angles on how can we provide housing for this population that we've never been able to house before. It takes different eyes, it takes different spirits, it takes different ideas to come together. We need to celebrate and embrace this diversity. Our God is diverse. We exhibit that diversity in the way that we live and the way that we work in Catholic Charities. Let me tell you a brief little story. I feel like, I'm a Catholic priest, and so I'm pretty fired up about it. And so I think about how, I want to be a part of that. We had case managers at Catholic Charities in East Tennessee, and they were fired up about their work. As fired up as I was about my being a priest and all that, I never prayed with our clients or never did sacrament, anything like that. It really didn't do that. It wasn't part of the agency, as you know. Well, this one case manager came to me one day and said, I really need you to pull out the priest thing. Because we're in this situation where a family that was living in a 4-room house that did not have running water, just 30 minutes from the downtown of Knoxville, kind of third world condition, just right outside there in that rural area that many of us people are struggling from. So she came to me and she said, 10 people living in a 4-room house, they have no running water, and they are afraid to use one of the rooms because they think it's haunted. They think one of the rooms is haunted. That was their faith. That's what they thought. Here's an expression of diversity of belief. And so she said, hey, can you use your priest thing to come and do an exorcism on that room and see how it goes? And maybe they'll be able to use the room. Sure, okay, whatever you say. So in my mind, I thought, I'll do a house blessing, but we'll call it an exorcism. Now, this isn't going to leave the room or anything, is it? There's no bishops here, is there? So this little exorcism, I went down to the daycare center and got a sippy cup, filled it up with holy water so I could spray it, sprinkle it around. And so using all of our resources. And so I went to the people's home. I went to their house and met them and talked to them. I'd met them before. This family actually met them before. And so we talked, and then we said, okay, this is what we're going to do. And so we got out the Bible, and we prayed a few prayers and said some prayers. And so then I went around, and I sprinkled the holy water in the rooms. Well, all day long, I'd been kind of saying, I'm going to do an exorcism. I feel like ashamedly kind of maybe belittling this situation and these people's fear. It was a real fear. And here I'm kind of belittling it, and I felt bad about it. So I had done that all day. Well, I got mine because I was going around the room, each room, and then I went into the room that was haunted. And there was no lights in there, but there was a pile of clothes in the corner. There was a window here and a pile of clothes that were kind of right there. So I threw the water on this pile of clothes, and out popped something that looked like it had horns. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, they were right. It is haunted. I've been making fun of this. Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. I won't make fun of it anymore. Well, turned out it was a cat. So maybe I jumped to a conclusion. But anyway, so there, I think, as silly as that story is and as goofy as I felt about it, I think is an example of the diversity. I'm a priest. I can do what I can do. Here's the case manager using every resource that she could possibly come up with to help these people. Not only did she use my priest part, but she also went out and got a bunch of people from a school to come and help these people shore up their house a little bit. There were cracks in the doors and stuff like that to help do some of that. And then you know what? Another group came and did running water into their house. And then another group came and helped them kind of fix up their porch and lots of groups that she accessed. So here's a diversity of skills that wrapped around this family. Whether it was an exorcism or running water or painting the house, it all came together. And you know what? Those people are doing pretty well nowadays. They're doing well, and they're surviving, and they're doing all right. It's tough that they have to live in such a small place, but they're wanting to do that. In fact, they adopted several other children that were being hurt in another situation so they could take care of them. Look at the diversity of gifts and talents that were going on there. Let me tell you one other thing that I think about this word difference. And I think that it's all about not difference, just diversity of people, but the difference and the diversity that we can bring in this world. Think about it. You and me can make a difference. We can make a difference. We talk about all of the obstacles that are there before us, the huge rising difficulty that people experience in poverty, the differences between the higher income and the low income. It seems to be just getting worse. All these things seem to be kind of working against us. But you know what? We can make a difference. Our God has made a difference in the world. You know how he's made a difference? By giving you and me the brain and the hands and the feet to be able to go out and do what we do every day in Catholic Charities. We can make a difference. We can make a difference, whether it's through clinical work, whether it's through refugee work, whether it's through feeding programs, whatever it is, that we can make a change. We can make a difference. What a great gift it is to be able to do that in our lives. Well, the third thing I kind of wanted to reflect on is this concept of unity. So this means we're getting towards the end. Third point, we were getting towards the end. So hang on just a little bit. This idea of unity is the idea of love. Think about the three persons of the Trinity, Father, Son, Spirit. They love each other so perfectly that they are one. They love each other so completely and so perfectly that they have become one God. Three people, all different, all equal, but yet one, probably because of their intense and perfect love that they share. Now think about this. Love is what it's all about for us. It's in our name, Charities, charity. It's in our name. It's who we are. It's our branding. It's what we do every day. We go out and try to love people. We go out and try to love them through our service. We love them through our listening skills, whatever it is that we're doing. Through trying to raise money for them, we're doing what we can to serve and love different people that are parts of our community. What a great gift that is. But you know, really, what is love? So I kind of started thinking, well, gee, I should look around and maybe do a little bit of research to help understand better about what love is so that I can continue to try to give this speech that I'm trying to fill these big shoes of. So I did some research, but I kind of got diverted. I went to watch some movies, and I thought maybe some movies could help me understand a little bit more about what love is. You know, there's a lot of lovey-dovey movies out there, and so I thought maybe that could show me. So I watched this one movie, and this guy said to the girl, "You complete me." And I thought, wow, that's really something. And at first I thought, well, that's nice. And then I kind of started thinking, well, if you are feeling so incomplete and so needy, maybe you should get yourself together before you drag her into it. I don't know, just a thought. Thank you. This idea of love basically is not trying to seek somebody else out to complete us. If we feel incomplete, boy, there's plenty of counseling services all over the country that we can get some help from right there in Catholic Charities. But this image of completeness is not, I need you to make me feel better about myself. I need you to somehow, or I need the client somehow so that I can check off all of my statistics. I need you for that. That's not the deal that love is at all. Love is a free gift. It's a gift that you're given. And it's not just a gift wrapped up in a bow, it's a gift of self. It's a gift of time. It's a gift of intellect. It's a gift of strength. It's a gift of a listening ear. It's the gift of self. Think about it. Every day, how difficult is it really? Really, think about how difficult it is to sit and focus and listen on a client that's struggling. You listened to somebody this morning, you listened to somebody last night, you're listening to somebody today. Every day, you have to get up and give yourself to the clients that you serve every day. You know what that is? That's love. That's love. Think about it. God gave himself wholly and completely in the person of his son, Jesus Christ, and we in Catholic Charities Network model that. We give ourselves. You give yourself every single day to help people. I can't believe how this disaster response office is. I mean, at the moment of a phone call, they drop everything and go to wherever it is, whether it was New Orleans whether it was the border, whether it was in New Jersey and New York, whatever difficulty, whatever disaster is being faced, I can't believe how Kim and the different people that work in the disaster response office just drop everything and they go. They go to love people. They give themselves in the best way that they can. That's a perfect example, I think, of how love is shared. I know that Sister Norma in her work on the border has really given herself so much. She was on CNN, you may have seen her, MSNBC, she was all over the place, giving herself and giving the message out there so that everybody could know. That's something to be proud of, because that's an example of what we're doing every day all over the country. One more thing about Sister Norma is I did not know you could dance like that, like I saw on the dance floor last night with Father Larry. That was pretty great. I'd like to say one further thing about love, and that's the idea of love for us. Think about how much love you all give every day. I hope that you're able to accept the love that others have for you. I want to tell you a real quick little story. My dad, who was totally awesome and somebody that I feel like was a great love. He was all about love. He died in December. He was a great, great guy. World War II veteran, died at the age of 87. And my brother and I were right there when he passed away. We were right there with him, right to the very end. You know, we could just feel how much he loved us right there in that room. It was really, really something to be a part of. But I wanted to share about my dad for just a second, because just a couple goofy things about him. This is my dad. One time, I brought one of the senior vice presidents of Catholic Charities USA. This was a big deal. They were visiting our diocese, and so I was taking them around to different places, and I wanted them to meet my family. So I brought the senior vice president of Catholic Charities. This is a big title, big deal. And so I brought him over to my parents' house, and my dad is there in the kitchen, and he's like, hey, come on in. And I can tell he kind of like, he's not as normal, like, hey, come on in, have a seat, and gentle, you know, southern humor, welcoming and all this. He's a little nervous. Well, I look in the kitchen, and do you know what? He had 2 bottles of wine sitting on the counter. I'm like, Dad, a little drinking during the day? Like, what's going on here? You know, I don't know. And he had to admit that he was taking a cheap screw-top bottle of wine and pouring it into an expensive-looking bottle to take to my sisters that night. That's my dad. Yep. So I thought about that, about my dad and how he did that. And then I also think about how my dad was honored. My mom and dad in Knoxville were not honored as the philanthropists of the year because they were big donors to Catholic Charities, and so we nominated them for this philanthropist of the year. Well, my dad, as you can see, is kind of goofy just from that one story. So my mom tells him, you sit here. You do not get up to the microphone. I'm going to do the talking. I'll thank everybody and sit down. Dad, you sit here. Because when Dad gets coffee, he can kind of get his mouth going a little bit, or got coffee. So you are to sit here and do not say a word. Well, she gets up and is getting ready to give her beautiful speech, and she's philanthropist of the year. You know, she could tell all her ladies at the garden club that she was whatever. And so my dad yells from his seat, you know, I really don't want to know what happened. Julia got a hold of my checkbook, and I don't know where it went. So that was his acceptance speech for the philanthropist of the year. So you can kind of see my dad. So I want to just say, though, my dad, really, he didn't have much to do with religion when he was a young guy, but he converted as an older person. And, you know, I don't think he really got Catholicism or got it. Until I started at Catholic Charities, to be honest, he didn't know we were doing all this. And he saw all the good work that was going on. He met people like senior vice presidents and people that were case managers, and he even met some of our clients. He became a huge fan of Catholic Charities. He donated money, and he donated his time. He gave what he could to try to help us. You know, my dad is one example of people that are all over this country that know of the name of Catholic Charities and that recognize it and that celebrate it and honor it and love it. In fact, I know lots of people that say, wow, I don't know how I would have a faith in Christ or a faith in the church if it wasn't for Catholic Charities and awareness of the service that you're doing. You, Catholic Charities, are an embodiment of who Christ is. You're an embodiment of Christ's love in a way. You know, I think many people have this experience. The other day, I was in my office at the University of Tennessee, which is a public state university. So I was sitting in my office at the College of Social Work, and one of the sisters they're a community that wears a long habit and a long veil, and so She's a Nashville Dominican. And so she came in to see me. Well, she walked down the hall at the College of Social Work in her long habit, and then came in to see me for a little bit, and it was great. We had a great time to catch up. She's a sweet person. Then she left. Well, then as soon as she leaves, there's like 4 people standing at my door. Did she have a ruler? Did she hit you? Are you okay? I mean, all this terrible stuff that they were saying. They had no understanding of what giving your life to Christ in a way was all about. But you know what? I think a lot of people, at least in East Tennessee and maybe in some of the areas that you're from, people don't understand the Catholic Church. They don't understand what it is, or we don't know much about it, or have these awful stereotypes and things like that. But you know what? If I had turned around to those exact same 4 people and said something about Catholic Charities, they would have been all about it. They love Catholic Charities. They love the work that's done all over the country. So we have a heavy burden in a way of continuing to love and continuing to spread that love in a special and unique way so that we can let people know that we are people about Christ. We are people about love. We're about service and about the goodness that the world is giving through us. So let me just sort of say here that I think that we have come together here today. We've come together here this week in this beautiful place, Charlotte, North Carolina, to be able to say, hey, wow, we are a special people. We're a special people that embody the divinity of Christ in our community and in our network. That what we do embodies the diversity, the equality, and the unity that's exhibited in our God and his very existence. And how we live that out every day is a gift. And it's an opportunity to do that maybe some of you thought you never would have had a chance to live as God lives, to serve as God serves, to do what's divine in this world. This work we are doing is divine. It is special. It is so sacred. So maybe as we go from here today, as we go from this time, there's going to be a million things that we're carrying in our notebooks, in our minds, in our hearts as we go from here. But please, if there's nothing that you remember other than this, just to know that you play a sacred, special place in bringing the presence of the Lord to the people that need it the most in this world. Thank you for the work that you do, and thanks for this time this afternoon. God bless y'all.